In the world of WWE, where most things are scripted and staged, there are still those whose toughness is absolutely real, no storyline required. These men didn't just play the role of warriors, they lived it. Whether in the locker room, the ring, or real life, their names commanded respect and fear from both peers and opponents alike. From real punches to backstage confrontations that were anything but staged, these are the most legit tough guys in WWE history. No show, no act, just the raw truth. Steve Blackman, WWE's silent and deadliest enforcer. Steve Blackman was never the centerpiece of WWE storylines, but when it came to being a legit badass, few could rival him. His nickname, the Lethal Weapon, wasn't for show, it was a warning. He didn't talk much. He didn't need gimmicks. One cold stare was enough to silence a locker room. During the chaotic Attitude Era, Blackman stood out, not with flashy promos, but with real combat skills that earned everyone's respect. One time, JBL, drunk and causing trouble at an airport, tried to mess with him. Blackman snapped into action, nearly flooring him on the spot. The result? JBL had to apologize in front of the entire locker room, or risk losing his teeth. And Big Show. Nearly 500 pounds of pure size and strength. You'd think he'd be untouchable. But Blackman took him down like nothing, tied him up like a pretzel, and didn't let go until he felt like it. That story spread like wildfire backstage, and became legend. Plenty of wrestlers have said it outright. No one wanted to cross Steve. Bob Hardcore Holly, no stranger to real fights, once called Blackman the most dangerous man he'd ever faced. Even Ken Shamrock, an MMA and WWE legend, admitted that Blackman could have made it big in the UFC if he wanted to. Off the mat, Blackman was just as much of a warrior. He survived severe malaria, a broken neck, and a traumatic head injury, things that would end most careers. But not his. For Steve, toughness wasn't just an image, it was who he was to the core. Scott Steiner, the madman known as Big Papa Pump. Holla if you hear me. Scott Steiner's trademark catchphrase wasn't just a gimmick. It was a warning. With a volatile temper, an unfiltered mouth, and muscles that looked engineered in a lab, Steiner wasn't just a wrestler. He was a walking nightmare for anyone foolish enough to cross him, both in and out of the ring. Alongside his brother Rick Steiner, who was just as tough, Scott was a standout in amateur wrestling at both the high school and collegiate levels. He ranked 6th in the nation his senior year, and when the Steiner brothers hit the pro circuit, they wreaked havoc everywhere. WCW, New Japan, WWE, TNA. Wherever they went, chaos followed. But Scott, aka Big Bad Booty Daddy, always brought the most heat. Steiner became infamous for his unpredictable attitude and tendency to start trouble for no reason. He once ripped into Ric Flair and J.J. Dillon live on TV, leaving them visibly stunned. In another incident, he reportedly clashed with a Georgia Department of Transportation employee. But his most notorious moment? A vicious backstage brawl with Diamond Dallas Page over DDP's wife, Kimberly, a fight so intense some say it nearly turned into a criminal case. Steiner didn't just beat DDP down, he allegedly tried to gouge his eye out in a fit of rage. As reckless as he acted, no one questioned Scott Steiner's toughness. He survived 2 near-fatal injuries that could have ended anyone's life, and still came back bigger, crazier, and more dangerous than ever. In 2015, WWE banned Steiner from attending the Hall of Fame ceremony out of fear he might legitimately attack his longtime nemesis, Hulk Hogan. Even now, pushing 60, Steiner still looks like he could destroy most people in a real fight, with a 141.23% chance of victory, if you ask him. Loud, jacked, and totally unhinged, that's Big Papa Pump. Jack Swagger, from All-American wrestler to cold-eyed cage fighter. Before he became the stone-faced Jake Hager in AEW, Jack Swagger was a rising star in WWE, backed by a world-class amateur wrestling pedigree. Not only was he an All-American, but he also held the record for most pins in University of Oklahoma history. Oh, and he also played Division I football. Balancing 2 brutal sports speaks volumes about his toughness and elite conditioning. Jim Ross, a master at spotting talent, was the one who brought Swagger into WWE. And while Swagger didn't always get top billing, he made his mark, ECW champion, world heavyweight champion, and someone the locker room came to respect. But rather than stay on the WWE treadmill, Swagger followed his passion, and jumped headfirst into real combat sports. Just months after leaving WWE, he signed with Bellator, not a scripted arena, but one of MMA's most punishing battlegrounds. And he delivered. Hager entered the cage and looked right at home. 2 decisive wins, and 1 no contest due to a few questionable shots to the groin. Hey, accidents happen. Just ask Ric Flair. In the cage, Swagger showed no fear and zero hesitation. He used his wrestling base to dominate, locking in submissions with textbook precision. No theatrics. No flash. Just raw skill and composure. That's what set him apart. He walked away from WWE's spotlight to face real punches, in a world with no scripts, no retakes, and no mercy. While Hager's MMA journey is far from over, just having the guts to step into the cage and win proves one thing loud and clear. Jack Swagger isn't just a professional wrestler. He's a legit fighter. Bobby Lashley, the disciplined destroyer. Bobby Lashley doesn't need to shout, brag, or pick fights in bars to prove how tough he is. His strength speaks through discipline, skill, and unshakable resolve. He's not the kind of guy who bullies smaller wrestlers backstage. He proves his toughness in far more serious places: the military, the amateur wrestling mat, and inside an MMA cage. Even in college, Lashley was already a freestyle wrestling star, earning multiple national titles. He was selected for the U.S. Olympic team in 2004, but a freak accident ended that dream. While training for the Olympics, Lashley met Kurt Angle, the man who opened the door to WWE for him. From that point on, the Almighty began carving out his path to domination. After his initial run in WWE, Lashley didn't retire or slow down. Instead, he stepped into the world of MMA and racked up an impressive record: 15 wins, only 2 losses. One of those losses came when the referee had to stop the fight because Lashley, severely dehydrated and fighting while sick, was physically unable to continue. But when fully healthy, he was nearly unstoppable, mixing crisp strikes, tight submissions, and gritty decision wins into one dangerous package. Weighing in at nearly 260 pounds of rock-solid muscle, Lashley combined raw power with real technical skills and military-forged discipline. He's more than a pro wrestler, he's a true warrior. While a dream MMA fight between Lashley and Brock Lesnar never happened, the two did collide in WWE. And no matter the stage, Lashley proved one thing: true strength doesn't need to scream for attention. It shows up in how you fight, how you live, and how you rise after being knocked down. Steve Dr. Death Williams, the misunderstood tough guy. Steve Dr. Death Williams' WWE legacy may forever be linked to his unfortunate loss in the controversial Brawl for All tournament, but that single misstep can't erase the truth. He was once considered one of the most dangerous men in professional wrestling. Williams entered WWE with a sports background that demanded respect, a 4-time All-American wrestler and a key player on the powerhouse Oklahoma Sooners football team. Though he didn't spend most of his career in the U.S., he became a legend in Japan, where the style was stiffer, rougher, and far more real. Over there, Williams thrived, engaging in brutal matches that showcased his raw strength and relentless pressure. American fans mostly remember him from his WCW run, and many insiders believed WWE had big plans for him, including a potential feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin. That dream matchup never materialized, mainly due to the injury he suffered during Brawl for All. Still, the fact that WWE saw him as a top contender for the tournament speaks volumes about how highly they regarded him. Williams wasn't someone who folded under pressure. During one match, he suffered a torn eyelid so severe it required 108 stitches. The next day, he showed up to work like nothing had happened. For him, bleeding wasn't a reason to stop, it was just proof he could take it. The nickname, Dr. Death, wasn't just for show, it became a symbol of his refusal to quit. Even when diagnosed with terminal throat cancer, Williams fought until the very end. He passed away on December 29, 2009, but the legacy he left behind, that of an unbreakable fighter, will never fade. Haku, the name that commanded respect in WWE. Just hearing the name Haku is enough to make veterans in the wrestling world change their tone. It's not because of how many titles he won, it's because he was one of the most terrifying presences ever to walk the backstage halls of WWE. And at this point, you might be wondering, wait, there are still 4 people tougher than Haku? Sounds unbelievable, but let's set that aside for now. The key word here is reputation. Haku wasn't always in the spotlight, but within the industry, he's a living legend. What's crazy is that most of his fearsome stories didn't even happen inside the ring. They took place in parking lots, bars, and anywhere someone was unlucky enough to test him. Tales of Haku taking down groups of massive guys like they were nothing, or literally ripping someone's face open, sound like urban myths. But when dozens of respected wrestlers tell the same stories, you start to believe they just might be true. Ironically, in the ring, Haku was known as incredibly safe and respectful, a true professional. But outside of it, if someone, say, a drunk guy who thought size made him invincible, pushed the wrong button, the consequences were usually brutal. One infamous story claims Haku bit off a man's nose in a bar brawl. And honestly, that guy might have been lucky it ended there. So why isn't Haku higher on this list? Simple. He never competed in structured combat sports like amateur wrestling or MMA, so his toughness was passed down more through word of mouth than through a win-loss record. No stats. Just stories. But if you ever run into Haku in real life, please, tell him he should have been number one, that we love and respect him, and that we deeply, sincerely apologize for any misunderstanding. No offense meant. Seriously. We're sorry. Dan Severn, WWE's silent wrecking machine. Dan Severn didn't come to the ring screaming, smashing furniture, or cutting fiery promos. In fact, he looked more like your old high school gym teacher. But don't let the appearance fool you. Severn was the quiet embodiment of danger. He didn't need noise. He could take you down, lock you up, and dismantle every joint in your body, all without raising his voice. One of the original pioneers of MMA, Severn came out of the early days of the UFC with a jaw-dropping record. Over 100 wins in 127 fights. He didn't just compete, he dominated. Back when fighters had to face multiple opponents in a single night, Severn was a relentless force. His run earned him a spot in the UFC Hall of Fame and cemented his role in helping shape MMA into the global sport it is today. That same intensity followed him to WWE. While his calm, no-frills demeanor didn't exactly fit the loud, edgy style of the Attitude Era, Severn still left a strong impression. So strong, in fact, that many of his peers openly admitted they were nervous working with him. Everyone knew, one wrong move, and a submission from Severn could leave you sidelined for weeks. Backstage, people called him Mr. Severn, not as a gimmick, but out of sheer respect. No trash talk, no gimmicks, yet his presence carried more weight than most promos ever could. Dan Severn never had to prove he was tough. He was the definition of tough. Ken Shamrock, the world's most dangerous man. The nickname, the world's most dangerous man, wasn't just for show. With Ken Shamrock, it was pure fact. Not only was he one of the earliest pioneers of modern MMA, but he also brought raw, unfiltered aggression into the world of WWE like no one else. Before ever stepping inside a steel cage, Shamrock's life was already a brutal test of survival. Raised in poverty, his family broken, he ran away from home before age 15. He was stabbed, lived out of cars, and clawed his way through the streets, all of which forged a fearless warrior who didn't know the meaning of surrender. He started his professional career in Japan, competing in both MMA and pro wrestling. That well-rounded foundation led him to the early UFC, where he didn't just show up, he dominated. As the first superfight champion, Shamrock helped lay the groundwork for MMA's rise as a global sport, known for his vicious submissions and iron will. When he transitioned to WWE, he wasn't just an MMA guy pretending to wrestle. Shamrock brought a whole new energy to the ring, intense, dangerous, and real. He quickly captured the Intercontinental title, won King of the Ring, and became a key figure in the Attitude Era. But just as WWE was hitting its peak, Shamrock made a bold move, returning to MMA to chase true competition once more. Though age and injuries eventually took their toll, he never stopped. He kept fighting, embodying what it means to be stubborn, relentless, and unbreakable. A UFC Hall of Famer, Ken Shamrock isn't just a symbol of strength. He's living proof that grit and perseverance can turn pain into greatness. He's a legend in both worlds, wrestling and MMA. Kurt Angle, the Olympic champion with a steel mind. Don't let the tiny cowboy hat or the infamous milk truck moment fool you. Kurt Angle wasn't just a TV entertainer. He was one of the toughest human beings to ever set foot in a WWE ring. This is the man who won an Olympic gold medal in freestyle wrestling, with a broken freaking neck. And no, that's not WWE hype, that's real life. Long before his WWE debut, Angle was already a legend in American amateur wrestling. He earned a place in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, an honor reserved for the absolute elite of the sport. So when he finally arrived in WWE, he brought with him a reputation that made it clear this was not someone you wanted to mess with. But even in WWE, Angle proved his toughness in more ways than one. Once, during a tense backstage moment, Eddie Guerrero suddenly went for a double-leg takedown. Bad idea. Angle, an Olympic-level grappler, instantly locked him in a front facelock that left everyone watching in stunned silence. Then there was his impromptu wrestling match with Brock Lesnar, set up backstage after some egging on from fellow wrestlers. The result? Angle came out on top, surprising everyone and earning even more respect from the locker room. Kurt Angle never had to puff his chest or act intimidating. He was intimidating. A true warrior who never needed drama to prove his worth. With Olympic gold around his neck, unmatched skills, and a cold, focused presence, he stood as living proof of one simple truth. It's true. It's damn true. Brock Lesnar, WWE's ultimate real-life beast. You might not like Brock Lesnar. Maybe you were outraged when he ended The Undertaker's legendary streak. Maybe it bugs you that a part-time wrestler earns an astronomical salary. But no matter how you feel about him, one thing's for sure, no one dares to step up to Lesnar and complain. Unless they're incredibly brave, or just plain stupid. The undeniable truth is this: Brock Lesnar is the embodiment of raw power and real-world fighting ability. Not just in WWE, but in the entire history of professional wrestling. Before becoming one of the most feared names in WWE, Lesnar dominated the amateur wrestling scene, winning the NCAA Division I championship, the most competitive level in the US. Then, within just a few months of joining WWE, he captured the world title, becoming the youngest champion in company history. When the squared circle no longer felt challenging, Lesnar took a detour to the NFL, despite not having played football since high school. Even so, he came shockingly close to making the final roster of the Minnesota Vikings. But what truly blew people away was his leap into MMA. He faced legitimate fighters and, in record time, claimed the UFC Heavyweight Championship. That wasn't luck, it was grit and talent. He once survived a horrifying botched shooting star press that would have left most people paralyzed. And he didn't stop there. Lesnar even beat diverticulitis, a brutal illness that nearly ended his career. In a world where everything is scripted, Brock Lesnar is the nightmare that doesn't need a script. He doesn't have to act tough, his mere presence silences locker rooms. Because when it comes to being legit tough, no one matches the beast incarnate. Bam Bigelow, the giant who ran into fire. In a world where wrestlers are often celebrated for brute strength and in-ring glory, Bam Bigelow proved that true toughness isn't just about punches and power moves. It's about courage, even in the face of death. With his massive frame, fiery tattooed head, and explosive in-ring style, Bigelow stood out in WWE throughout the 1990s. But what truly earns him a spot among wrestling's toughest isn't something that happened in a ring. It's a moment from real life that earned universal respect. In the year 2000, Bigelow didn't hesitate to charge into a burning house to save 4 children trapped inside. No protective gear. No oxygen mask. Just a fearless heart and the guts of a man who refused to stand by. He suffered burns on 40% of his body, but every one of those kids made it out alive. No script. No spotlight. No crowd. Just a raw act of heroism from a man whose entire career was defined by rebellion and raw energy. That moment was tougher than any steel cage match or brutal brawl you've ever seen. Bam Bigelow wasn't just a tough wrestler, he was a real-life legend. Roode, the man even superstars feared. Roode wasn't just some arrogant guy flaunting muscles and tossing out sultry lines on camera. Beneath the flashy persona was someone genuinely dangerous, physically and mentally. In the world of pro wrestling, few could be both seductive and terrifying like ravishing Roode. And it wasn't just part of the show. He embodied real toughness, the kind that even top stars didn't want to mess with. Hulk Hogan, the face of WWE, reportedly avoided a title match with Roode. Why? Because Hogan knew Rick didn't play by TV rules. Once that bell rang, Roode was ready to throw out the script, literally. That's not just locker room gossip, It's a fact backed by those behind the scenes. Off camera, Roode never backed down. He once knocked out a big guy in a bar with a single slap, just for giving him a dirty look. With a background in martial arts and a take-no-crap attitude, Rick Rude was someone no one dared to provoke, inside or outside the ring. Even the Ultimate Warrior, known for being wild and unpredictable, was wary of Roode. He understood that if things got out of hand, Roode would turn it into something very real. Rick Rude never needed to act tough. He'd walk into a room, and the silence said it all. That's what true presence looks like. Who do you think is the toughest of the bunch? Drop your pick in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video from Wrestling Sphere.